Feel like you're walking in your father's footsteps and being like,
Oh,
condo president.
Yeah.
See you later.
Emerald Green Board
Have a
meeting.
good night.
One.
All right, welcome in, folks. Chris is admitting folks into the Zoom. Give us just a moment. We'll be set up and ready to go.
Looks like we're good.
Great. Welcome, everybody, to the February regular meeting of your Emerald Green POA board. Patrick Knell, president of the board. And before I ask Chris, our secretary, to take a role of board members, I just wanted a couple quick housekeeping notes to let everybody know that the meeting is being recorded. And the reason for that is so that we can put it up on what is our newly launched YouTube channel for those who couldn't join us tonight and who want to look back on the meeting and stay informed. We hope everybody is finding that to be a good feature. And so
You know the same. I'm just wiped out, you know, because I don't feel great.
I hope everybody's finding that to be a good feature. Okay, technical difficulty there. We're trying to shorten our meetings a little bit, have a couple more frequent meetings that are shorter in length and try to vary the times a little bit. We're trying to think of different ways to get more people involved and at least engaged. So hopefully this works well. So tonight, our agenda, rather than our usual sort of longer, all the financial data, et cetera, we're going to focus on the entertaining project, and I'm sure that's why you all are here. So we're going to go over an update of that like we would in any of our board meetings and have in all of our board meetings since we were elected. But we really want to open it up at the end for your questions and try to give you some information about things that you're interested in about the entertaining. So with that, Chris, would you kindly make sure we have a quorum? I guess that's involved taking a roll. So sorry.
Dan.
Here.
Al.
Here.
Alex. Arthur. Patrick.
Here.
Earl. Alana.
Here.
Joel.
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Zach.
Zach is unable to join us. He did text that he wasn't going to be here. All right. Thanks, Chris. So let's jump right into it. We're going to talk board members through a quick update on where we are in the entertaining project since we last met on January 15th. Michael, can you give us an update? I know you emailed us occasionally, more than occasionally, what's going on, but for everyone's benefit, let us know what's going on, particularly with the DNZ.
Okay, most of the construction is obviously all done now to this point. The heat has been taken care of in all the wings. We do have one compressor for the bathroom side, the west wing, the bathroom side of the building that is on back order still. But we're pretty much all done with the construction part. They have to come back in and do some touch-up painting, which needs to be done in the next week or two. He's going to get in and do that. We had the electrical inspection yesterday. That was all taken care of. The alarm is being, the fire alarm, they're working on that now, yesterday and today. So we're hoping that's done by the end of the week. Pretty much been moving right along on getting things ready. Some of the staff behind the scenes been working on getting the fixtures cleaned, the chairs that were stored in the building that are all full of dust. We got to get those steam cleaned, so we're steam cleaning them. There's, all the little stuff is locks are being installed, those type of things. So we're moving right along here.
Great.
Right. Michael, I
So-
noticed, and I think it might be beneficial to let the community know that you're in the new space there as we're watching.
It's the closet, so.
Good. That's good to see. And also,
Yeah,
I know
Brittany,
you,
well, just one second, Hal, since you brought that up. Brittany and I have moved over into our offices here. The homeowner's office is still over in the clubhouse. Once we're able to get the temporary CO where they consider the homeowners public. So it is only your building and the public doesn't have access to it, but in the town's eyes, the homeowners are considered public. So they don't want to open the buildings until the alarm system is up and running.
right. I just thought it was worthwhile to note the progress that you and Brittany are there. Also, I think you and I spoke about it. Security, we have pass points all close to being ready.
Yeah, they're working on that that's tied in with the alarm system.
Right.
That's great. So I know, Michael, we're still waiting on delivery of the bulk of the fitness center equipment, which has been scheduled for the first week of March. I think some of the other smaller stuff that we're taking care of ourselves, like the spin bikes and the mirrors. Do you have an update on that?
Spin bikes are here.
Great.
They are here in crates or boxes. I don't know what that part of that is, but and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the first week of March they're looking to deliver the equipment.
Should be on March 1st. I'll email and confirm tomorrow and copy you on that.
Well, he can, yeah, okay.
Great.
One question about the spin bikes. Do they require assembly?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we can get some volunteers for that. I'll put my name in there for that.
Okay, I'll bring you a screwdriver.
I think I have
You could buy one on your way home from work.
I think, Michael, that's something you and the maintenance staff can generally take care of, though, right?
Yeah, once we get coordinated with what's going on, that should not be a problem.
Okay. So, and we'll talk about some of the remaining items, if any, in just a moment, but you mentioned the CO, or the temporary CO. What's the horizon look like for that? What's the time frame? I think that's really the linchpin of when we can start opening. I guess what I envision is if we have the fitness center equipped by early March, no reason we can't start opening that as soon as the equipment is online, tested, and ready to go, even if other pieces of the building aren't necessarily done.
Because when the project was done, each wing was done pulled a separate building permit. So that I'll have to coordinate with the town and see what we have to do to get that part of it over when they come back next week to do our final inspection for the temporary CO on the office side. I will speak on what we need for the rest of it.
Okay, great.
I don't think there's much of anything else, but I'm I'm not sure. I don't want to say something I'm not sure.
Okay,
Well, I think the only holdup at the pool was handicap parking signs originally. So do we have those for the entertainium there, or do we need?
Yeah,
or do we-
that won't be an issue here.
Okay, great.
But that was for the full CO. Over there, the temporary CO was granted without that. So, but we have to have striping for that as well. So I have to see what it is.
Perfect. Thank you.
I hate to jump around a bit, but Dan, since you mentioned it, one of the items on my list, Michael, was to ask you about the punch list for the pool house building. Since that's D&Z related, what's the status of that?
We didn't, he hasn't worked on any of that. I've been trying to get him to concentrate on this here to get this done.
Fair enough. All right, apart from the main gym floor, is there anything else, Michael, that you can update us on or that we're waiting on?
Well, we do once we're waiting for the carpet to be installed, the tiles upstairs. Once the room is finished painting, he will get that installed. And downstairs also, we have to get that taken care of. And the rest of it is just, and all that'll fall together quick once we get that next stuff. I mean, a lot of this stuff was got taken care of in 2 weeks after your last meeting. So he's been really attentive to us.
Good. I don't recall, what did we decide is on the floor in the main entrance in the center section? Did we have a resolution with that part? Was it carpet tiles? Were we painting? Yeah, Chris, you remember?
I think when we last chatted, we this is related to the flooring conversation I think we're about to have, but I think where we left it at the last meeting was talking about we were going to have the floor painted, having them just extend the floor painting out to that ground floor vestibule, and then putting down an entry mat on top of that. I think that's where we left it, but I understand that also now we're going to have a conversation about that.
All right, Michael, anything else before we talk about the main floor?
No, I'm good for now.
How about
Okay.
the elevator? Are we all good with the elevator?
The elevator, we're waiting on the final turnover from Otis, but that's just a scheduling when they're going to get here to do it.
Gotcha.
When do you expect them to be scheduled?
Should be the next week or so. I got to follow back up with them. One of the guy who was supposed to come and do it got COVID, so that got thrown out. So they had to reschedule.
And then, I guess before we start talking floor, what about a cleanup? You know, we've had a couple of proposals for cleaning. How much of a lead time do we need with either of those vendors?
Well, we have started cleaning. Our part-time guy has been coming in a couple hours a week and working on just starting to wipe things down and starting to get ahead of it a little bit. But as far as the professional company coming in, well, I haven't done anything with that because I didn't
Okay.
know if, I didn't think we made that decision yet. That's the only reason I was getting anxious and having our guys start on some of it.
Yeah, I don't recall making a decision, but I'm just curious as to the lead time.
It's probably fairly quickly once we call them. I don't think it'll be too long for them. It's kind of the winter time. It's a little bit slower for him.
Okay.
I'm assuming.
But we picked a vendor for that, right? Is it Harry O's?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the main gym floor, the main rooms floor. you wouldn't mind, you did a great summary of where everything is in an email to the board members. If you could just sort of read that out and let folks know what's going on, what our options are at the moment.
Sure thing, sure.
Thanks.
Let me just pull it up here. All right, just a quick introduction. I was asking, I sent around an email. I was asking for all the board members to hopefully get a chance to read all the options that we've presented so far. That I think it's time we need to make that decision, which way we're going to move forward with the gym floor so that we can finally finish that discussion and get ready to open the building. Because I saw this as the last major piece in order to open up the building. And frankly, the previous board had been kicking it around since about this time last year. The current board, we've been discussing this since October, and I just think we need to finalize and make a decision one way or the other. I presented all these options and then gave my opinion. So let me just run through the options real quickly, if everybody's okay with that. Option one was to stripe the floor as is, of course, to clean it first, but to stripe the floor and not paint it at all. So we would just have bare concrete, just striped for basketball, pickleball, shuffleboard, etc. And that option was going to be about $3,500. It was $3,000 to Poli and about $500 to acid wash the floor. I thought this was the least attractive option, but needed to be presented. Option two was what Dan had proposed much earlier, that we would go with a court paint, and Poli was going to be installing it rather than the board actually painting ourselves. So this estimate is about $12,500, $12,000 to Poli, and Poli is requiring that the floor be acid washed for that as well. And that's about $500. So materials, everything included. I thought the important thing to remember with this, and I spoke with the manufacturer of the paint, this should last us 2 to 4 years before we have to resurface. One of my fears, though, with this is that we saw in the old building, really the same floor, but it was the old building, was that the concrete will start to crack. And we had very large cracks by the end of the use in the old building. We are seeing some hairline cracks now already on this concrete floor. So if we paint, eventually we're going to have to do some repairs to the cement. All right, so that was a major consideration also. But again, court paint will be very durable, should last us about 2 to 4 years before we have to do it again. The other downside to court paint is the manufacturer and Poli both told me that it's going to show a lot of dirt in there. People are tracking in dirt from the outside. We're going to have to be cleaning this floor, and cleaning is just really a mop, but it'll have to be cleaned pretty regularly. The next option was called VersaCourt, and for the board members, I think we saw samples of this at least once. These were the plastic tiles. Brittany had gotten us an estimate on this, and she got the updated estimate a few weeks ago. These plastic tiles, we would be putting together ourselves. So we have to assemble the floor ourselves. I included a video if anybody had a chance to watch it. It does look pretty simple. I think, the maintenance team here at Emerald Green and probably a couple of volunteers from the board get this done maybe a day or two. These come already striped. So the jigsaw puzzle has instructions. You put piece number 100 over here, piece number 102 right next to it, et cetera, et cetera. The cost on this was a lot more than the painting of the floor. It is suggested that we have to clean the floor underneath it first, but not an acid wash. So that would just be what Harry O's had proposed. And that was about $300 to get that floor cleaned, but that's included in an estimate that we have to do the entire building. But the big cost obviously is the tiles themselves. It's about $49,000. We do get some extra tiles stored away with that. The really good thing about this is these tiles are going to last a lifetime. They come with a lifetime warranty. It's pretty hard to damage these unless somebody was actually trying to, in which case, obviously, we have, if there's a vandalism issue, then we have other issues besides just the tiles. My only concern with this flooring is that it needs to be cleaned underneath these tiles. How long? We don't know, but it might be every 2 years. I would suggest that if we went ahead with this, we should at least look at what's doing underneath the floor a year from the time it was installed. Ideally, I think the time to do this and to pick up the tiles and clean underneath is probably in the summer when we would expect the building to get its least amount of use. Important part to remember is we buy this, it's a one-time thing. We could also get the emerald green logo on this court, so I think it's going to be a great appearance. It's very attractive to begin with, but if we put the logo on it, really gives us some pop. The building will look great. Next option we had was to do an epoxy. And to do this, they have to actually come in and grind the floor before they apply the epoxy, because the floor is a little too smooth in order to, for the epoxy to adhere to it. So all in, materials, labor, everything, that's going to be about $55,000. And this is for a medium grade industrial epoxy finish. Not the top of the line, but not the bottom of the line. The life expectancy on this is about 5 to 7 years for this application. And the real reason is the floor is going to show imperfections. Again, once the floor starts to crack, you're going to see these cracks come through in the epoxy. My concern with bouncing a basketball on a hard, on a hard epoxy surface like that is we're going to help crack it that much sooner. All right, again, that option was $55,000. The next option was also an epoxy floor, but a heavier duty epoxy. It also comes with a urethane finish, so it would have, even though it would have grip, but it's going to have a nice sheen across the top of it. This is about $65,000. Because it's a little heavier duty, the life expectancy should be around 12 to 15 years. Again, though, it may very well show any cracks. And if the floor has any bumps, if it's not perfectly smooth, you're going to see that with an epoxy also. Last option I thought was the most attractive. I just wish we had the money to cover this. And that was called the Bounce 2 floor. So for anybody that's been in the building already, it's really the same surface that's in the fitness room and on the elevated track. It's a cushion, a rubberized cushion floor, but on the top of it is a vinyl cover. And the vinyl covering actually looks like wood. I know Michael tried to damage it by scratching it and try to cut it, and it's really durable. This also has a really long-term life expectancy. Again, this should probably outlive the life of the building. Nice part about this, and the same with the VersaCore tiles, is these are tiles. So if one small section of it is damaged, you simply pull out that section and you replace it with new tiles. The last thing was just a review and my recommendation. Obviously, I understand that the dollars are pretty tight, but I think if we were creative in how we did this, I think the best scenario for the community long-term would be the VersaCore tiles. Again, those are the plastic tiles. The most cost-efficient upfront would be to paint, stripe and paint. That would be, as I said earlier, about $12,000, $13,000. To do the VersaCore tiles, we're looking at a difference of probably about $35,000 to $38,000 difference. However, I think it's a much, much more attractive product. I think it will last a lifetime as opposed to constantly 2 to 4 years, every 2 to 4 years, having to repaint. And if there are cracks come up in the floor, which invariably it's going to do, then we have to worry about fixing that and repairing that as well. So again, my recommendation is that we go with the VersaCore after all this research that I've done. And lastly, I don't really have a horse in this race. I just presented all of these. I'm offering my opinion based on all the work that I've done. But I think the most important thing is that we need to do our job and make a decision. And I think we should do that tonight. If we can't do it tonight, it can't really wait much longer. You know, we as a board are responsible for making this decision in the next week or so that we can get this building open when we promised the community it would be open. With that, I will be happy to hear any questions and entertain discussion.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Hal, and really thanks for getting your hands around that and putting it together so comprehensively for us. I think that was really helpful for everybody. So
My pleasure.
So let's open it up for board member questions, comments, thoughts. Chris, you're clapping. Handing over your hands up. Anybody have questions or want to throw your thoughts out there? Dan?
My
Yeah.
only
Go ahead, Dan.
my only thing, Hal did a fantastic job of going through this and investigating and coming to a good understanding on what is what. I do appreciate that, and the VersaCore does look like a fantastic product. I was watching the video. I do like how it's put together. I get that. My concern obviously is the expense. When we initially drew out the assessment, that was not in the scope of work. And this is additional expense that would obviously be required to finish the job. And then part two of that would be getting that floor. I don't know what the timetable on getting that even to the facility would be. If we're looking at 6-8 weeks before we can even have it, we're not really looking at, a great solution there. I know the original scope of work that we had drafted into the assessment was the court paint, and there was a timetable on getting the court paint, and it was, as fast as it could get shipped to us, less than a week. So I don't necessarily agree with the timetable on that or know what the timetable might be, but my biggest concern would be the additional expense, especially, when we're talking about add-ons that we've already had to incur here and there on getting things done. We don't have a very broad scope of contingency money left over, and especially in the budget, to be able to assist in any overruns on this project. Had this been something that we planned earlier on, it could have been drafted into the assessment, but now we're talking about something that was agreed on when we drafted the assessment. And as much as I would agree that it's a nice floor, I don't know that now is the greatest time to make that decision after we had already put a levy on the homeowners for the assessment.
Well, I certainly appreciate the cost concern, and that's why I raised that issue. I think, there were a couple ideas out there kicking around. Joel certainly mentioned one or two. And I'm sure if we put our heads together, we could figure out, best case scenario to find the funding for it. If that's the way we decide to go. In terms of the lead time, manufacturer can have this shipped out 3 to 5 weeks. So I don't think it's really an issue. I think that's certainly within our window of what we're looking for.
Do we know like where we're at as far as like, okay, we went out with an estimated amount that we did the, the call on, but we don't know exactly like, all right, how much is it going to cost? How much do we still owe outstanding? And
Joel, hang on, important questions, and let's get to that, but I saw Tom and Earl have their hands up for questions in a moment, but yes, that's important. We absolutely need to understand that. I think that conversation is going to take quite a bit.
but I still have something else to say. So there was savings from the bikes that we were gonna with the equipment, the gym equipment. Have we used all that up?
Joel, those savings are over 5 years through the term of the lease.
No. The lease side of it? No, but I'm saying we didn't buy the bikes. We didn't buy the additional equipment. We were talking about saving that stuff or no?
That was through the lease because we adjusted the lease.
Fine.
Tom?
I generally agree with Dan. I spoke to the manufacturer mainly about the muriatic acid and the dust concept. I don't know that Poly's going to change their mind on that, but they did not require the muriatic acid to be done. I just think, like Dan, I think we have a budget, and it's our first year of dealing with our new money that's coming in. We don't know how everything's going to cost. And I think, and the cracks will eventually come in the floor. Hal is correct. But even if we paint it in 2 or 3 years, if we see our budget and our income changes, things get arranged, then we can put the floor down before we do start to develop those other cracks and other stuff. I just think, we're too new to following the money right now to add this an expense right at this point.
Obviously, Tom, I'm sensitive to the cost concern also, and I think that's obviously a very big piece to this. Aesthetically, let me just address that. We built this building for over $3 million. I think it should have a certain look to it. And when we first walk in that building, the floor is what you're going to notice first. So that's just one thing, and I think this is a lot more attractive than the paint. But I'll set that aside, and as I said, cost is a huge piece to this. But I also was on the phone with the paint manufacturer yesterday. They said if you do not acid wash, you're looking at maybe a year and a half that this is going to last, and the paint's going to start coming up. Poly's concern with the acid wash wasn't so much the paint as it was once he did the striping. And when he pulled the tape off the court after striping it, that's when he says the paint's going to start coming up. So it's a small piece. Acid washing, we're looking at only about $500, but it's something that is a necessity.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth arguing over the muriatic acid at all.
Right.
And I agree long-term. I think it's a good-looking floor and a durable floor. I just don't know, when we promised an austerity budget to the community at the moment, and we still don't know really what it's going to take to operate things in there, that stepping up to that, unless Dan can find some money somewhere. I just think we should stick with the paint with the long-term plan of putting that other product in down the road when we get our budget a little better balanced.
Thanks, Tom. Earl, and then Alana.
I mean, Tom and Dan kind of beat me to it. Hal, I get it. I played basketball on that court before. I think it's all cool, but agnostic of what the other board did prior to us, we need to align ourselves with our commitment, at least kind of see our first full financial cycle through. And then as we look at planning for the next financial cycle, make that top of mind. And I'm probably more concerned along the lines of Tom's last point. There's an operation side of this, that once we get the doors open, what's going to be the operational budget that we need to incur? And I think we need to get our hands around that. And so, I mean, great opening up, great floor, logo. But if we open it, great floor, but we don't have and haven't budgeted to maintain it, to maintain the building as a whole, that's might be much of a slap as not having the quality and the pristine floor that you're recommending. But I'm 1,000% on board with the Verifloor. I don't think we need to go with the $70,000 option. I just think right now we need to pause and honor our commitment, at least the first full financial cycle.
Thanks, Earl. Ilana?
First, a question, and then I'll put my commentary in. How the estimate for the muriatic acid, that seems low to me, 500, since there's a fumes issue, you have to protect the surrounding baseboards and floor. How did you get to that $500 for that treatment?
Oh, wasn't easy to find somebody who wants to do that work for us. But I met with a concrete guy, mason guy, at the Entertainium on Friday, and he gave me the estimate of $500. He would do the job for.
Do we have some?
I'm happy to share all his estimates with everybody. I have it.
And that includes
I have it by a text.
and that includes the materials?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, it's labor. The way to apply it, it's labor. You're simply gonna scrub it with a deck brush.
Yeah, it's very simple, Alana. It's much like they would do with your boat when you take it out of the water at the end of the year.
And then speaking about the plans, I'm feeling a little frustrated, to be completely transparent right now. Back in September, we had these exact same conversations. Specifically at our workshops early on, we addressed the question of, and we related the floor issue to the pool liner issue, which is, why are we going to put a Band-Aid on something that we could think more long-term about? And then ultimately we wavered. The board ultimately decided that the paint was, the majority decided that the paint was the way to go. I think we've had this discussion. Not everybody agreed upon it, but that was what was assessed. That's what we told the homeowners was going to happen. That's where we're at. I don't think we can say we can put our heads together. That's an idea. It's not a plan. We can't present that to the community with fidelity right now. I know we can maybe find something, but we can't say that with certainty to the homeowners. And without certainty, I think we have to go back to our original commitments. Even though I personally think there are better options out there, but September was the time for us to address those. We spoke about the same things about not having the long-term durability, to invest early and not later. And that's what that's what the group decided on at that point. We're living with it right now.
Thanks, Ilana. Just a quick point of clarification. Until our January full board meeting, I had never heard of the VersaCore option. I didn't even know
The
that.
VersaCore was not mentioned. What was mentioned at the September meeting was the relationship of the epoxy. So
Right.
what we were talking about was a line item of $40,000 that I had asked at that time. Why did we look into an alternative to the paint to begin with? And it was about durability was the issue, the long-term durability. And we were toying with the number of $40,000 versus $10,000. And if you look, the DuraCore came up at the last meeting because the previous board had looked at it and it got tabled. But yeah, so these specific options, but the amount that would have been allocated was around $40,000 is the number we were looking at.
Good point. Thank you. Chris?
So Hal, I really like the VersaCore option, and I think in the long term that can deliver the best value to both to the facility and therefore to our members. So and also just thank you for all the work on this. Like, that was really helpful. And so I think where I'm at is just, I think I'm in a similar place to Ilana, where I would love to be in a position to support the VersaCore option because I think it's the best product. I think there's a lot of uncertainty around the project, and I wish we were not in a place where we had uncertainty around both the final costs of the project and the pools of money that we have available to spend on the remaining contingencies. If we had more certainty on that in this moment, as well as some more certainty on what it's going to cost to maintain the facility over the next year, I think I would feel better going with a kind of higher dollar upfront, longer term value solution.
Mhm.
I wish we had better, we should have better numbers about what the project has cost and what sources of funding we have left.
Okay.
All right, anybody else?
Well, I think Joel had a couple of ideas about how we could delay certain expenses if we were interested in getting this done. And that would be, go ahead, Joel, I'll let you take a swing.
Oh, you're on mute, Joe.
What I'm concerned about with the acid wash is if that stuff gets on the walls, it's gonna ruin our walls. So is this guy gonna prep, and basically put plastic so that there's gonna be some splatter? Let alone, if that stuff gets on the wood, the walls, it's gonna ruin the walls. And also what's gonna happen with the fumes of this thing coming up, we don't know what it's gonna do to the ceiling, the wood ceiling that we have up on top. So that's one thing. In regard to, I think we need, before we make a decision, I think we need to have our numbers locked down. At this point, we should, and know what we've collected, how much we spent so far, and what we have left to complete the project. One of my ideas was is that maybe if we had the money, but I don't know, that maybe we could, like, I know we have work that Poly is going to do for us as far as, doing the parking lot and striping and things like that. Maybe we hold off doing that and maybe we do that in like September, October, after we've gotten the second, commitment from the people. Maybe we would have extra money and then we could use, that money that we have from the original call that we did, we can use that up against the floor. But I don't know because we don't have numbers. So I would strongly recommend that before we vote on something, that we let Michael present the numbers to us, because there might be a way out of this, and it might just be a timing issue. So, because I think we're worried about costs and things like that, and I understand that, but maintaining this floor, we're gonna have to mop this floor, I don't know, once a month, once every 2 weeks, depending on the traffic. There's gonna be a cost associated with that. And then what happens if this floor starts cracking? You're not gonna be able to use the facility because people are not gonna be able to, there's gonna be a trip hazard. So that's that. I just think we need more information before we make this decision. Another week is not gonna make that much of a difference here. And that's all Michael probably needs a couple more days, and maybe one day. I don't know. Michael, if you can wait in on this, I'd appreciate it.
I would love to. I'm leaving for vacation.
Okay.
I sent everybody a best guesstimate email. You could check your email
Yeah.
right around the time of the meeting.
And,
But
and Kirsten, our accountant is working on our final numbers also. So I don't know if she's gotten with Dan yet. I know I was working with her earlier in the week, so I'm not quite sure where we are with that stuff either. But I'll start trying to get it done for you guys in the next couple of days.
I guess this is Earl. I think my question is kind of to your point, how if the decision had already been made, then I think even before we look at how this can be done, then the question comes back to the board. We can have this conversation in front of everyone, or we cannot. What direction does the majority want to go? And then if we've already made a decision, are we going to make it a practice to make a decision, align on it, and then course correct for whatever the reason is?
I think we have more.
That's a decision that the board would make. I don't think we had all the information available to us. Like Alana said, most members didn't see this sample, didn't know about this court until January.
Yeah.
So, and I also think even with the other options, whether we go with them or not, everything needed to be updated.
I'm happy to jump in and just be sort of real direct about it. I agree with Alana and Tom in the sense that I think love the VersaCourt. I really think it's a great option. I just don't think we can afford it right now. I don't know, Joel, that there's any amount of information we would get in 1 day, 2 days, or a week that's going to change the fact that, as Alana correctly pointed out, we made this decision a while ago. And I'm looking at the assessment budget, which puts flooring, court paint, and main area at a cost of about $11,141, which is pretty darn close to the current estimate we have on hand. Off just a smidge, but really not that bad. I'd be inclined, again, being very direct, I'd be inclined to go with the court paint, get it done, get the building open, continue to look at the VersaCourt option, continue to look at our financials, continue to understand what our picture is like over the next couple of days, 6 months, 9 months, and see if we can't afford that in the future. Look, if we're doing our job as well as we think we're doing our job, we're going to have the money to be able to do that in the probably near future, if not, in the next couple of years. And I'd be more inclined to look folks in the eye and say we made a better financial decision by waiting and doing the right thing by getting the building open right now. That's where I'm at.
But what's going to happen is that we know that in a few years this floor is going to fail, and we also know that probably the VersaCourt's going to be more money. So I don't know. I just think we waited this long. It's the same thing that we did back in September. We rushed and rushed and rushed to get something through. And
Well, if the floor is going to fail, it's going to fail regardless. You could put an epoxy over it, and the epoxy would just at that point deteriorate over top of the concrete first. So, I mean, I don't know where we're getting the ideology that the concrete's going to continue to fail.
Only because it's already showing cracks.
Well, I was in there. I didn't necessarily see any cracks. All I saw was fade. I saw fading, unless you can show me some of the areas that you're talking about. I saw where they put the skim coat down.
Yeah.
And you can see definitely where it was leveled. I didn't necessarily see many cracks, but even if the floor did crack, that's going to happen with no matter what floor. You may think that you're putting another substrate over top of it, and that's going to protect. But ultimately, that floor would probably, if it's going to crack, it's going to crack with the VersaCourt or with the epoxy.
It will crack, but and there's at least a half a dozen lines already, one of which runs almost the entire length of the floor. So as soon as you walk in, it's only about 10, 15 feet in, and it runs left to right as soon as you walk in. That one's already running.
And then the other piece that I would say to that is, I'm not going to assume anything, but I'm fairly certain that our tennis courts right now have cracks, right?
Oh, sure.
And every year or two, we put the court paint over it, and this is just kind of what we do. I don't know that this is any different than that. I mean, are we saying that the concrete's going to fail more than a normal tennis court because of this, or not?
I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know. It might, only because this is cement, and those tennis courts, everything, that's all asphalt. So that may be the difference.
And you're bouncing tennis balls compared to a basketball, which are two totally different things.
Great.
I'm sorry, Patrick. One thing also just to keep in mind, although it's been beautiful the last few weeks, it is still February 16th. We got to paint that. We got to remember the interior of that building is not heated. And, so that's going to probably be a little bit of time also, just to figure on painting. Getting the temperature of the building. It's not going to delay us from opening. Yes, aesthetically, it wouldn't look nice if it's not painted. But I don't think that component, if there's paint on the floor, would hold us up from from opening. So if you needed a little more time for information, that, you know, just throwing it out there.
That's a good point, Michael. If I recall, I think that the recommended application temperature was 50 degrees.
Correct.
Well, then Michael, to that point, I'm gonna sort of turn it back to you and ask, is there any indication in what you've seen in the preliminary numbers, the numbers to date, to suggest that within the next several weeks, there's going to be an accounting windfall to help us sort of justify the fact that we would go with something other than what we previously decided?
What could help you is your transfer and construction fund. There is really no limit on that. We have home sales coming in, you know, that continue to go on. There's quite a few new homes that will be selling. That is where you can pick up on some. I do have a foreclosure I'm working on. So that may be something that we can, you know, pick up a windfall. That would be a nice windfall, but I don't know how that is going to pan out for us right at this.
Right, and I think what really that shows is that there may be, and this may be an option for us. It's just we're not in a position in the very near term to be able to do that. Chris, I see you have your hand up. Turn it to you.
Yeah, so Patrick, I think I'm where you are, and so Hal, I would love to look at this VersaCourt option in a year or two, and I think where my concern is, I think we actually probably have the money, and I think we will have the money in a year or two. The concern is on the expense side, that we don't yet have a good accounting of the final costs of the project in front of us. So I think right now, my thought is the most prudent option is to go with the Poli court paint. I'm going to make a motion for us to vote on that option, to have Poli paint the court and stripe it.
I'll second that.
Great. So we can have debate or a vote on that. I would just add to that, you know, again, it's with the understanding that we're not putting the VersaCourt option to bed, and we would welcome the opportunity to look at that when we have a real sense that we can afford to do it. All right. So with the motion as framed and as seconded, does anybody have any additional thoughts or comments before we take a vote?
No.
Hearing none.
Anybody have an appetite for homeowners to weigh in?
I do, and that's why I'm asking that we have this vote taken, not necessarily on the debate of the board's decision, but that we can get to the homeowners' questions as quickly as possible. So, all right, I'll call the vote, and all in favor? You gotta unmute.
Aye.
So, aye.
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 Dan just needs to unmute. Thank you. Any opposed?
Aye.
Looks like 2 recusals, abstentions. Motion carries. All right, we will be going with Poli paint option. I see nothing else that we have to vote on to project continued on, and I think we're at the happy point for our homeowners who are listening in, where we're going to listen to their questions. Feel free to put questions in the chat if you're not necessarily interested in speaking. Otherwise, I'm going to ask that you use the raise hand feature. Physically raising your hand at the screen is a little tricky because you can't necessarily see it. The raise hand feature is under reactions. If you're on your computer, you'll see the button there. It says raise hand.
So Patrick, just one question in the question box.
Yeah.
A homeowner, Ronaf, said, could you get a paid sponsor to put a logo and offset the flooring expense? I don't know the process behind getting a sponsor or how expedited that could be to do that. And then it would probably go against advertising rules that we may have.
Yeah. I think it's extremely tricky to pull off because we're a 501c whatever nonprofit. It could be difficult to license naming rights. I'm not sure, but it's something worth looking into. I just don't know how quickly it'll get us there. All right, I'm going to see questions are coming in the chat, but Marcy, you had your hand up, very patiently waiting. And then, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. So my question was, since the building has not even been opened yet, and I'm hearing that there are some pretty significant cracks, can that go back to the contractor? And can they remedy that? Because it seems like something wasn't done correctly if it's never even been stepped on.
Michael, you want to weigh in?
I'm assuming you want me to do that?
Yeah.
It's common in the levelastic that is on the floor. It's not the concrete. It was the skim coat that went over top, and it commonly has stress cracks in it. These are hairline cracks. It's not like somebody can fall into it or twist their ankle in it. It's you can't even feel them really if you run your hand over top of them. Most of the time when you do something like this, you're putting tile or paint or something on top of it so it soaks in and covers it up.
So there's no remedy with the contractor then?
No, because it usually it's how the concrete works. Concrete gets cracks in it.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcy. Luna Vogel and then Dr. Brown. Oh, you're on mute, dear. Let's see, maybe we can help unmute you.
Okay,
There you
well,
are.
I had the same question about the cracks, but if you put this tile system over it, will those cracks underneath possibly affect the tile system? That's one question. And my second question or comment is that if Poli's painting costs $12,000 and you said that lasts from 2 to 4 years, you have to figure in a couple of years another 12,000, and that probably will go up, to 13, and in a couple of more years another 13. Maybe it's, even though you say it's a lot of money, maybe it's more cost effective to put the tile that won't need that same kind of maintenance every few years.
That was one of the items that we were weighing in on that. But just keep in mind that the initial cost is for the initial paint. Putting down a recoat over top of that would likely not be the same price as the initial coat.
Well, it's the same labor to him, and he's probably not going to give you a much less price. If I'm sure it's the labor.
That's true, and you would have to restripe it if you repainted it. So
Right, so it's
that's
going to
true.
cost, you have to expect that maintenance every couple of years. And according to what you said, this tile doesn't require that maintenance.
right.
And that maybe going into that transfer fund that Michael mentioned would make it a wiser decision now than to just throw in the 12,000 because you're anxious to get this thing open and started.
Lee, can I say something? These are
Yes.
the exact points that we brought up in September. A group of us felt
But-
exactly this way to put the money in. There is not enough in the transfer and construction right now to do this. I would love to do this, right? Beyond belief, I would love to put that court in. That would be my choice. I think it's the better choice, but we made a decision. We assessed the homeowners and now we are living within that decision.
But when you
I
made
would-
the decision, this tile was not brought. I
It
at the
was
meeting
in the
September.
office. It
Well,
was in the
at the meeting in
office.
September, it wasn't, the
But
community
at the
didn't
meeting
know
in
about it.
September, we had $40,000 that we were talking about putting, and I would love to say that I fundamentally believe that this is the right choice to make with those tiles. I just voted against it because we have to go back to the homeowners and say now, we didn't live within our means. And that was the whole big problem of last summer, was that we were not living within our means and everybody was riled up about that. So we are living within our means. I don't think it's the best choice. I think we're in a pool liner situation where we're going to have to replace it, but we are in a position of making a tough choice. And if somebody can the idea is they want the entertainium opened within a couple months. If we want to spend more time finding this $40,000 and delay the opening of the entertainium, then that's it's kind of like nothing is ideal here. We have to make a decision.
Well,
To that, Lee, I would just add, Alana's right. The board came to a decision on this. And most of the members of the current board did not see this tile, the VersaCore tile, as an option back in September, but the board just made a decision. And, I also think, and I presented it in my proposal, that I think long-term, it's still in the community's best interest to go with the VersaCore for all the reasons that we just mentioned, rather than the paint. But again, the board just made a decision, and I think we're all prepared to live with it. But certainly appreciate the opinion.
I just think that you're throwing the first $12,000 away if you eventually want to switch to that VersaCore. That's my,
I don't disagree.
I agree completely with you.
okay.
I agree.
I also want
Penny
to point
wise,
out that-
dollar foolish.
I also want to point out that no matter what, everything, and I'm not speaking more generally than just about courts at the moment, is going to require maintenance. And what you can expect us to be working on, the very next thing is, as we pull this thing into completion, is to have a maintenance and operations plan in place, so we understand exactly how all of that is going to go. Rich, I think you were next.
Yes. First, I have a question for Hal. When you put down the VersaCore, does it matter that you have a painted surface underneath?
No, that won't matter. I think you don't want to see the other lines underneath it coming through, so we may just have to put a layer of black paint over it. You don't want to see two sets of lines.
Okay. My main question was, you skimmed over very rapidly the entryway and what you were doing. I'm going to comment that based upon 60 years of ownership of a multi-professional office building, and I managed it. Your entryway may be one of the most critical factors in maintenance of the building. There are materials that catch and collect dirt rather than just a tile or a painted floor. They will accumulate the snow that people come in with their shoes, and you need to very, very seriously address that because whatever you bring in goes on a painted floor. Little pebbles, gravel on a shoe, on a sneaker, into the sole, that's going to wear down any surface, even your running tracks. So you should have some policies as to people coming in with street shoes and changing if they're going to go on the running track. You should have some policies about daily maintenance and people signing in and taking responsibility for the things they do. And I think that should be done prior to opening the building.
Thanks, Rich. I'll let Michael speak to that a little bit too, but I know that'll be part of the maintenance plan. If we'll paint it, we'll have runners down. Whatever we do, they're going to be runners that go down.
What I was talking about is not a runner. If you look up commercial entryways, there are very sturdy entryways that tolerate a lot of stress and wear and tear, and will reduce your overall maintenance in the building tremendously. Plus,
he's talking about an anti-fatigue mat that has holes in it, similar to the VersaCore, but it's more rubbery.
Yeah, but there are pieces that you can lift up, vacuum underneath. It will catch all the material. They're statically controlled mats. I mean, some can go into really big pricing, but we ran our professional building, and in 60 years only had to replace the lobby carpeting 3 times.
Great.
So, with good quality commercial carpeting, and that's something you have to consider.
Thanks, Rich. This is a great suggestion. Let's look into it. Richard Rubin?
I want to get off this topic and then you can come back to it. Question from Michael. The parts that caused the premature closing of the pool last fall, have they been received yet?
You're muted, Michael.
Yes. Pool's all ready for you, Rich. Come on up.
See you tomorrow.
All right.
And
All good.
Rich, also happy to report it was a warranty claim, no cost to the association. Other questions? Marcy, your hand's still up. That was probably from earlier, I suspect. Just gonna check the chat. Okay, cool. Going once, going twice, seeing no other questions. Want to thank everybody for taking the time.
There's a Leon Vogel. Was that Miss Vogel that spoke before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Just want to thank everybody for taking the time to come out and chat with us. And we'll see you at our, I want to announce our next regular meeting. Hang on. Chris, can you do your thing? Thank you. Our next regular meeting is on March 19th. Make sure I'm not muted. It's on March 19th, which is a Sunday, 9 a.m. The board will be back in person. We'll offer the Zoom option. I'm really happy to announce that our local assembly member, Aileen Gunther, will be joining us for that meeting. The board has decided we should elect, or we should invite our local elected officials to come and just kind of give you a little bit of an update on what's going on in their particular districts, and highlight for you ways that they can also help you. The idea really came about from folks who were looking for street lights on their streets. And so we were able to help them liaise with the town supervisor and the town folks to try to get that done. But there may be other constituent services that you're looking for that your local elected officials can help you with. And it's always just a good idea for the association to have those relationships in place too. Particularly with our state elected officials where we have leaks and big environmental issues going on. So with that, hope everyone can join us on the 19th of March. Come meet Assemblymember Gunther, and that'll be our next regular meeting. So thanks everybody and have a good night.